everybody, this is Jay, and in this video I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I hauled in the first quarter of 2024, so January, February, and March. This video is going to be a little bit different from my normal videos because you're actually going to be able to see my hands. That's right, and I'm not even charging you to do it. It's for free, out of the goodness of my heart. Just don't use it for any weird purposes. Additionally, I want to apologize because I'm still in the throes of allergies. For the most part, I think I sound pretty close to normal, but there are moments here and there where, my voice starts creaking. So, yeah, apologies for that. That being said, without further ado, on to the books. So the first book I'm going to haul is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. As many of you know, this is the second book in the Emily Wilde series. I have read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was very quaint. It was very sweet. I enjoyed the kind of tidbits of romance we got, and I really like that it's a slow burn. And I just was really enraptured with the characters and the way that the stories are told. So I just went ahead and bought the second one, even though I haven't read it, which is breaking my own rules, but I also really like how the hardcover of it looks. And I missed out on getting the hardcover of the first one, so I made sure that I got the second one when it came out, so I wouldn't miss out on it this time. I also picked up The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, the third book in the Mistborn saga. I have already read this one, so it does, fit within my parameters for buying books. Although I did previously own these books, but I owned the trade paperback copies and I hate them so much. I think they're so ugly. I think they're absolutely hideous. So I actually gave them away to a friend a while ago, and I saw these new paperbacks coming out, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't really liked any of the versions of Mistborn that have come out previously. So I was really excited when I saw these paperback covers, plus they match with the second era Mistborn series. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna accrue these instead. I like how they look, and now I have them if I ever want to do a reread. So that's really exciting. I love myself a good horror novella. Like, a good horror novella is gonna just hit my fancy like very little else will. And when I read What Moves the Dead, ooh, I love that book. I really love that book. On top of that, I loved the look of the book itself. You'll notice a trend here. I am a sucker for book covers. Full acknowledgement there. A little bit of shame, but not much shame about it. So when I found out that it was going to be a series and there was going to be multiple, I knew I had to buy it. So I did. I actually went to the store a couple days early thinking like, you know what, maybe they're going to put it out on the shelves early. And they did. I got lucky. So I got it actually before the official release date. I did not read it before the official release date. In fact, I still haven't read it, but I have it. So I can read it now if I want to. Next book up is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. This is another case of I liked the first one, so I went ahead and bought the second one without reading it again. I was actually really torn about picking up this second one because, to be honest, I didn't really like the cover that much. It's not a bad cover, and I wouldn't have any problem with it, except that I don't think it matches the first book's cover, and that bugs me. However, when I was in Canada at the end of February, I went to, I think it was an Indigo up there, and I saw this just lying on the table, and it was a paperback version, but it kind of matched the first book cover more than the hardback in the US did. So I was like, screw it. You know what? I'm going to get it. And I did. So that's why I have a paperback second book and a hardcover first book, which I'm not a fan of, but it's making the best out of a bad situation. Next up is Green Rider by Kristen Britton. I know pretty much nothing about this one at this point. I know I kind of generally looked up the synopsis when I decided to buy it, and I remember thinking that I thought the synopsis was really interesting, but I have since purged it from my memory. I like to go into books knowing literally as little as possible, so I purposely try to forget as much as I can, and it worked beautifully for this one because I remember very little. The only things I really remember is that this is considered a classic fantasy novel. I think it was written in 98, and it's written by a woman about a female character, so I have very high hopes. I am very excited about this one, and I really think I'm going to enjoy it. I loved Tamara Pierce growing up as a kid, and I'm really hoping that this is going to be similar to it. So fingers crossed, I'll keep you posted. This edition, by the way, is the special edition from the Broken Binding. I love their edition, so honestly, you're probably going to see a lot of those. This one is The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder. Again, I know nothing about this one. I saw it at a Costco for a good price and thought, oh man, the title and the cover, they look cool as hell. So I bought it. Is this a good method for buying books? No, it is not. It is very bad. I would not recommend it, especially considering that this book actually does seem to have a pretty bad rating on Goodreads. It's like at a 3.45. That is not good. So I'm thinking I'm still going to try to read it. I have a rule where it's not a rule, but I feel awful if I don't give it a shot before getting rid of any of the books I own. So if I buy it, if it comes into my house, then I have to at least try it. I can throw it out for any flimsy reason I want, but I have to at least try it. And since I got this one from Costco, I can at least return it if I end up not liking it. So I might borrow it from the library or something so I don't damage it, but this one will probably not be in my house for very long. We shall see. My copy of the Kickstarter version of the Threadlight Omnibus by Zack Argyle also came in during this quarter. Oh no, this is another one where I don't know anything about it and I haven't read it and I bought it anyway. Oh man, I am really just learning uncomfortable truths about myself right now. In my defense though, if I can even, have one, is I bought this right when I had discovered that special editions were a thing, and I went a little ham with buying as many pretty books as I could get my hands on, and this is very much one of them. And it is very pretty, I'm not going to lie, but I haven't read it yet, so I can't say anything past that. And yet the next book is another special edition from The Broken Binding, The Iron Crown by L.L. Macrae. Okay, but look at this one. It has a dragon on it. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? It's a dragon. I like dragons. I have no defense. I'm just gonna go. To offset all of the really pretty expensive books, here are a bunch of books I got from essentially I think it was a farmer's market thrift store. The first one was Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup by John Carreyrou. This one is about Elizabeth Holmes and her fraudulent company Theranos. It is a nonfiction, and as someone who works within the realm that the book focuses on, I am very interested to know more about this and to see if any of my professional insights can help to better understand what happened here. Because I know the general about it, but I don't have any specific detailed knowledge. And I have a friend who doesn't have a history in this field or any tangential fields say that it was really approachable and very, very interesting from her perspective. So I'm curious how having knowledge of the field is going to change my perspective as well. From the same farmer's market booth, I picked up The Cloisters by Katy Hayes. Finally, a book that I have read, although I did read it after buying it, so still broke my own rules. But I feel like thrift books don't count, they're so much cheaper, and it's such like a exciting find when you find a book that you want to purchase, even if you haven't read it yet. I don't know. I just, obviously rules mean nothing to me. overall, it was okay. I don't regret reading it. I thought it was fun. It's a dark academia thriller about a woman who gets way too embroiled in toxic people at the Metropolitan's Cloisters Museum. I think the shining point of this book is really the atmosphere, and everything else is just kind of meh. The next farmer's market book is Why Fish Don't Exist, a story of love, loss, and the hidden order of life by Lulu Miller. I think that this is a pretty short little nonfiction memoir, and I've heard that it's very good, so it's been on my radar for quite a while. And then on top of that, I think Kayla from Books and Lala recently read this one and reviewed it on her channel and really liked it. So I saw it at farmer's market, and I needed one more book to round out the 4 and thought, what the hell, why not? I'll get this one. The last book that I got at the farmer's market was A Man Called Ove by Frederik Backman, but I'm not really counting that as a haul because it immediately went into my unhaul pile because I'm an idiot and I didn't realize I already owned it. It is a book that I really, really liked. I really love Frederik Backman's writing, and I honestly have not read a cozy author that doesn't like him. So I don't regret owning this book. I do regret buying it again. I then picked up the next few omnibuses in the One Piece series by Eiichiro Oda. Specifically, I picked up the second omnibus, which covers volumes 4 through 6, and the third omnibus, which covers volumes 7 through 9. These are definitely rereads for me. I have reread certain chapters of One Piece and certain arcs of One Piece over and over and over again. I started reading this series in, I want to say, middle school, so it has been a very long time since I started reading this series. I think I've been reading One Piece for over half my life at this point. It is easily one of my favorite manga of all time. However, the weekly format is kind of getting old for me. I don't really like reading in that really abbreviated way, just short snippets once a week. They always feel too short for me. Sometimes if I can't catch up, then I end up reading multiple chapters at a time, but I've forgotten what happened in the last week because it's such a small snippet, and it doesn't work for me anymore. So now I'm trying to reread the entire series, being able to read it on my terms. So I just started it very recently. I just started collecting the volumes in a tangible format within, I want to say, the last couple months, I think. So I'm very early in it, and that's okay. I enjoy reading it slowly and really taking my time. I also hauled this quarter 3 of the Asterix books. These are French comic books about a Gaulish man named Asterix, and they are the last holdout in all of Gaul against the Roman invaders. This is a comedic comic book that was around when my dad was a kid, and he passed on his love for it to my sister and I. The 3 that I purchased are the original French copies. They're not the English translation, so I can kind of sort of barely read them, but not very well. I really got these more as a nostalgia thing. I found them in some random used bookstore in the US, so I was not expecting to see any French comic books in here, and when I did, I knew I had to buy them. They are specifically Asterix en Hispanie, Asterix aux Jeux Olympiques, and Asterix et les Normands. Excuse my somewhat shitty French accent. And the last of the books that I hauled this month are all subscription box books. Like I said, I went a little bit ham on the special edition stuff, so I have quite a few. The first book that came in this quarter was the last book of the Powder Mage trilogy by Brian McClellan, which is called The Autumn Republic. I am showing all 3 volumes of this trilogy right now because I think they all look nice together. But the only one that I actually received this quarter was The Autumn Republic. I don't know too much about this one, and obviously I didn't choose the book because it's part of a subscription service, and the Broken Binding is not very flexible with their skips, so it's very much kind of you get what you get. But I've heard really good things about it. I've heard it's really interesting, and that the magic system is the most interesting thing. Specifically, I think it has to do with magic revolving around gunpowder and guns, which I've never seen before, so I'm actually quite intrigued by it, and I am excited to figure out what all the hype is about. The actual trilogy that was focused on for the first quarter of 2024 from the Broken Binding subscription was actually the Hanged God series by Thilde Holdt. Once again, I know nothing about this book. It was not on my radar at all until I received it from the Broken Binding, or until it was announced. I believe it is a fantasy saga based on Norse mythology, so that's very interesting. It's not something that I have read a lot of, so I'm very intrigued to pick it up. Additionally, it's very exciting to see an epic fantasy series written by a woman. There are some around, but female authors are really not that prevalent in the fantasy space, so I'm very excited to pick something up that fits that criteria. Additionally, I just really want to give kudos to the Broken Binding here, because look at how the second book in the series arrived to me. It is a travesty. It is a horrific car crash of a delivery. But the book came out perfect. No issues, no blemishes. It was wrapped so beautifully. I could not be happier with the way that the Broken Binding handles books when they send them to you. So kudos for that. The first book being Northern Wrath, the second Shackled Fates, and the final book Slaughtered Gods. Finally, I also subscribe to the Illumicrate subscription. However, I am much more liberal with my skips here because Illumicrate is very forgiving about skipping months. So I only have one book from the Illumicrate subscription, and I also have one from the Evernight subscription. First up is the Illumicrate subscription book, which was Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. I think this one is a fantasy murder mystery that takes place on a boat, so it sounded very intriguing to me, and I liked the sound of it, so I went ahead and went through with this month's book. The only thing I'm a little nervous about is that I know Illumicrate does tend to skew young in the writing styles that it chooses for its subscription boxes. I'm a little nervous about that because I'm not a huge fan of kind of young adult writing styles. The Illumicrate Evernight subscription book that came in was The Innvocations by Krystal Sutherland. I moved forward with this one because I did read House of Hollow by her, and that one, even though it was a young adult book, I really enjoyed. I loved the atmosphere of it. I loved the writing of it. I thought it was really good. So I decided to go through with The Innvocations when it was announced as the Evernight book, and I'm kind of glad I did because, oh my goodness, this book is so pretty, especially the edges. Have you seen the edges? They're beautiful. Creepy, but beautiful. I'm pretty sure this one is about witches, but that's it. That's all I know. Surprise, I don't know anything. And that's everything I hauled in the first quarter of 2024. A grand total of 22 books. Now that I've said it out loud, it makes me a little nervous because that is a lot of books to be bringing in, especially at the rate at which I read owned books. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to pick that up. That being said, not all hope is lost just yet. I did unhaul some books as well. So these are all the books that I unhauled this month. I'm not going to go too far into detail about them. Majority of them I just unhauled because they were just not my cup of tea. I had tried reading them and they were just too old. I couldn't get into them. They hadn't aged well, or I just didn't vibe with them. You can find out more about most of them from my reading wrap-ups. I talk about all the books that I don't like or DNF there. So if you're curious, check those out. The books are Masquerade by Gail Linz, The Eight and Fire by Catherine Neville, On a Wild Night and On a Wicked Dawn by Stephanie Lawrence, The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell, The Jacid Air by Sarah Hashem, Enter Pale Death by Barbara Cleverly, and finally, The Cloisters by Katy Hayes. Yes, that's right. I hauled and am going to unhaul it in the same quarter. Alrighty, so now that I feel immense shame about all of the books that I bought that broke my rules for buying books, I'm gonna go and cry myself into a corner. Hopefully I will have read some of these books by the time I do another one of these hauls, but my track record is utter crap. So it's extremely unlikely that I will not. At least I know myself really well. I don't know. There's really no saving myself at this point. So thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again next month for my next reading wrap up. Have a good one. Bye.